Xanthor's skin flickered from calm blue to pale green as another passenger approached his checkpoint. He had been standing at this security station for 6 hours, and his feet ached inside his boots. Station Kepler 7 never slept. Ships arrived and departed every few minutes, bringing traders, tourists, and travelers from across the galaxy. The line stretched behind the latest arrival, a human wearing a worn brown jacket and carrying a simple bag. Xanthor had processed 347 beings today. This would be 348. Just another face in an endless stream. "Documentation, please," Xanthor said in standard galactic common. His translator chip made the words smooth and professional. The human stepped forward and placed his hand on the scanner pad. "Greg Palmer, captain of the Dawn Treader, here to deliver medical supplies to the station warehouse." Xanthor nodded and watched his screen as the scanner read Palmer's biometric data, name, species, homeworld, travel history. Everything appeared normal. The human looked tired, maybe in his 40s by human standards, with lines around his eyes that suggested he spent too much time staring at star charts. "This will take just a moment, Captain Palmer," Xanthor said. His fingers moved across the holographic controls, pulling up the standard clearance forms. Then his screen exploded with light. Xanthor jerked backward as symbols he had never seen filled his display. Ancient text scrolled past faster than he could read. His skin flashed bright yellow in shock, and several passengers in line behind Palmer gasped. "Is there a problem?" Palmer asked, leaning forward to look at the screen. I don't... Xanthor stared at the display. A holographic projection erupted from his terminal, spreading 3 feet into the air. It showed a complex tree of genetic information, branches spreading in all directions, connecting to databases Xanthor didn't know existed. At the top of the projection, in letters that glowed like molten gold, were 2 words: Founder Authenticated. Xanthor's training took over. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He stood straight, pressed his right hand to his chest, and bowed his head. The words came from memory, from a class he had taken 7 years ago at the Security Academy. Words he thought were just ceremony, just ancient tradition that nobody used anymore. Honor to the Founder. May your path be clear and your purpose true. Palmer stared at him. "What?" Xanthor looked up, his skin now cycling through confused purple and shocked yellow. "Sir, you are recognized as Founder lineage. The system has authenticated your genetic markers." "My what?" Palmer's face showed pure confusion. "Look, I'm just a cargo hauler. I've got 200 containers of antibiotics that need to get to your medical bay. Can we skip whatever this is?" But other security officers had noticed the commotion. Lieutenant Kira Voss, a human woman with short black hair, approached from the adjacent checkpoint. Her eyes went wide when she saw the holographic display. "Xanthor, what's happening here?" "The system recognized him as Founder lineage," Xanthor said, his voice shaking slightly. "I've never seen this before. I didn't think it was real." Kira's hand went to the communication device on her belt. "Commander Zixanal needs to see this. Right now." Wait, Palmer said, holding up both hands. "I don't know what your computer thinks it found, but I'm nobody special. I was born on Titan III colony. My parents were farmers. I've been hauling cargo for 20 years. There's been a mistake." Xanthor checked his screen again, but the data remained unchanged. The genetic markers were clear. According to the system, Greg Palmer carried DNA sequences that matched something called the architect pattern. The system had cross-referenced his genetic code with databases that apparently went back thousands of years. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to come with me," Xanthor said. "This is protocol for Founder recognition events." "Founder recognition what?" Palmer's confusion was turning to frustration. "I have a delivery schedule. People need those medical supplies." "Your cargo will be handled," Kira said, her voice firm but not unkind. "But this is bigger than a delivery, Captain Palmer. If the system recognized you as Founder lineage, we need to figure out why." More security officers were arriving now. The passengers in line behind Palmer were being redirected to other checkpoints. Station Commander Zixnall, a tall Kryn with silver scales and calculating eyes, strode through the crowd. "What is the meaning of this disruption?" Zixnall demanded. Then he saw the holographic display and his eyes widened. "By the old laws." "Commander, the system authenticated him as Founder," Xanthor explained. "I followed the greeting protocol as we were taught." Zixnall circled the holographic display, examining it from all angles. "I have been Station Commander for 12 years. Before that, I served in customs for 20 years. I have never seen founder protocols activate. He looked at Palmer with an expression that might have been awe or fear. Captain Palmer, you will need to come to my office. This requires immediate attention. I really just want to deliver my cargo, Palmer said, but his protest sounded weak now. Your cargo will be unloaded and delivered, Zixnall assured him. But first we must understand what has happened here. The founder protocols have not been triggered in over 3,000 years. Not since the time of the architects. The who? Palmer asked. An ancient civilization, Xanthor said quietly. They built the first stations. They created the jump gate network. Some say they seeded life on dozens of worlds. But they disappeared long ago. Most people think they're just legends. They are not legends, Zixnall said sharply. They were real. And their technology still forms the foundation of galactic civilization. And according to this display, Captain Palmer shares their genetic lineage. Palmer ran a hand through his hair. This is insane. I'm just a cargo pilot. Perhaps, Zixnall said. But the system does not make mistakes about this. Come, Captain. We have much to discuss. 2 security officers flanked Palmer, not roughly but firmly. Xanthor watched as they led the confused human away from the checkpoint. The holographic display slowly faded, leaving only standard readouts on his terminal. Kira stepped beside him. You okay? Your skin's still yellow. I'm fine, Xanthor said, but his voice shook. I never thought those old protocols were real. We learned about them in academy, but the instructors made it sound like ancient history, like something that would never actually happen. Well, it just happened, Kira said. She looked at the corridor where Palmer had disappeared. And I have a feeling this is going to get complicated. Xanthor returned to his checkpoint, but his mind was elsewhere. In the academy, they had taught that founders were keybearers, not rulers. They could access ancient systems that no one else could touch. They were supposed to be protectors of something important, though nobody remembered what. Now one had appeared at his checkpoint on an ordinary day. He had a feeling that nothing about his job would be routine anymore. Other passengers began approaching his station, and Xanthor processed them automatically, but his skin remained a troubled yellow for the rest of his shift, and he couldn't stop thinking about the tired cargo pilot who somehow carried the genetic markers of a civilization that vanished before most current species had even learned to use fire. Whatever this meant, it was only the beginning. Greg Palmer sat in a room that was too clean and too quiet. The walls were white, the furniture was white, and even the light seemed to wash everything in pale brightness. He had been here for 2 hours, and nobody had told him anything useful. The door opened, and Commander Zixnall entered with 3 others. One was a human woman wearing academic robes marked with university symbols. Another was a Valian male with diplomat badges covering his chest. The third was a younger human man who looked nervous. Captain Palmer, Zixnall began. Allow me to introduce Dr. Helen Cross, xenoarchaeologist, Ambassador Quintel of the Valian Diplomatic Corps, and this is Jake Morrison, your co-pilot. We thought you might want a familiar face present. Jake, Palmer said, relief flooding through him. Did they grab you too? Not exactly, Jake said, sitting down across from Palmer. They told me you were being held for some kind of genetic thing. I came to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. Confused, but fine. Palmer looked at the others. Can someone please explain what's happening? Why does your computer think I'm important? Dr. Cross sat down and activated a holographic display from a portable projector. Captain Palmer, what do you know about the architects? Nothing, Palmer said flatly. I've heard the name. Old stories. Ancient civilization that maybe existed. I thought they were myths. They were very real, Cross said. Her display showed star maps and genetic charts. The architects built the foundation of our current civilization. The jump gates that connect systems. The translation technology that lets different species communicate. Even the basic design of stations like this one. They existed roughly 5,000 years ago. Okay, Palmer said slowly. What does that have to do with me? They didn't vanish, Cross continued. That's what my research suggests. They scattered. They deliberately reduced themselves to primitive populations on multiple worlds across the galaxy. They hid. Why would an advanced civilization do that? Jake asked. Because they were afraid, Cross said quietly. My research suggests they feared something so dangerous that hiding was their only option. They spread themselves across dozens of worlds, let themselves forget their technology and became simple populations again. Ambassador Quintel stepped forward. And they left certain genetic markers in their descendants. Markers that would allow access to emergency systems they built before they scattered. Palmer felt cold. You're saying I'm descended from these architects? Your DNA contains markers that match theoretical models of architect genetics, Cross explained. When Xanthor scanned you, the system recognized those markers. It authenticated you as what we call founder lineage. But I'm from Earth, Palmer protested. Well, Titan III, but my ancestors came from Earth. We have records going back centuries. There's nothing special about my family. Cross smiled sadly. Captain, Earth itself might have been one of the worlds the architects seeded. Think about it. Humans appeared in this galaxy seemingly from nowhere. Your species developed faster than statistical models suggested possible. You had no contact with galactic civilization until 200 years ago, yet you adapted to it remarkably quickly. You're saying humans are architects? Jake asked, his voice rising. Some humans carry architect genetic markers, Cross corrected. Not all. Probably a very small percentage. But yes, humans are likely one of the descendant species. Palmer stood up and paced the room. This is crazy. I'm nobody. I haul cargo. I fix my ship's engines. I play cards with my crew. I'm not descended from some super-advanced ancient aliens. The markers don't lie, Zixnal said. And they've already started affecting station systems. What do you mean? Palmer stopped pacing. Zixnal pulled up security footage on the wall display. It showed Palmer walking through various corridors of the station. Watch carefully. In the footage, doors opened before Palmer reached them. Security checkpoints deactivated as he approached. Even the lighting seemed to brighten when he entered rooms. The station recognizes you, Zixnal said. Old systems that have been dormant for thousands of years are responding to your presence. You're triggering protocols we didn't even know existed. Palmer stared at the footage. I didn't do anything. The doors just opened. Because the station knows you're a founder, Cross said. You have access to systems that nobody else can touch. The architects built failsafes into everything they created. Only their genetic descendants can activate those failsafes. What kind of failsafes? Palmer asked. We don't know, Cross admitted. That's what we need to find out. Ambassador Quintel cleared his throat. Captain Palmer, you should know that word of this has begun to spread. Multiple parties are interested in your situation. Some view it as a scientific curiosity. Others see political opportunity. And some see threat. Threat? Palmer looked at the diplomat. I'm not threatening anyone. You represent change, Quintel said. The discovery that humans carry architect lineage will shift political dynamics. Some species will embrace it. Others will resist. There are already human nationalist groups claiming this proves human superiority. There are anti-human coalitions claiming you're a danger to galactic stability. I just want to deliver my cargo and go home, Palmer said tiredly. I'm afraid that's no longer possible, Zixnal said. Not yet anyway. We need to understand what your genetic markers unlock. We need to know what the architects left behind. Dr. Cross stood up. Captain Palmer, do you have any family heirlooms? Anything passed down through generations? Palmer thought for a moment. My grandmother gave me something before she died. A crystal pendant on a chain. She said it had been in our family for generations. I keep it on my ship. Cross and Zixnal exchanged glances. We need to see it, Cross said urgently. Right now. 20 minutes later, they stood in the cargo bay beside Palmer's ship, the Dawn Treader. It was a sturdy vessel, older but well-maintained. Palmer led them up the boarding ramp into his small cabin. He opened a drawer and pulled out a simple chain with a crystal pendant. The crystal was clear, about the size of a thumb with faint internal patterns that caught the light. This is it, Palmer said, holding it up. Nothing special, just something my grandmother treasured. Cross pulled out a scanner and pointed it at the pendant. Her eyes went wide. Captain, that crystal contains data storage technology. Technology thousands of years ahead of what we have now. Palmer looked at the pendant in his hand. He had worn it sometimes, kept it in his drawer others. He had never thought it was anything but a pretty stone. Put it on, Cross said. Please. Palmer slipped the chain over his head. The moment the crystal touched his chest, it began to glow. Light spread from the crystal, filling the cabin. A holographic projection erupted into the air, showing a star map. 17 locations were marked across the galaxy, each pulsing with soft light. One location pulsed brighter than the others, marked with symbols Palmer couldn't read. "What is this?" Jake whispered. "Coordinates," Cross said, her voice filled with awe. "The architects left coordinates. They're leading us somewhere." Palmer stared at the map floating in his cabin. The crystal pendant warmed against his chest, and he realized his simple life had just become impossibly complicated. Zixnal was already on his communication device, calling for more security. Ambassador Quintel looked worried. Jake just looked confused, and Palmer stood at the center of it all, holding a piece of his grandmother's jewelry that apparently contained secrets thousands of years old. "The brightest location," Cross said, pointing at the map. "That must be the most important site." "The primary installation." Palmer looked at the coordinates. They pointed to a region of space he had never visited, in the neutral zone between 3 different empires. "We need to go there," Cross said. "That's neutral territory," Zixnal said. "It's unregulated space, dangerous, but necessary," Cross insisted. "Whatever the architects left behind, that's where we'll find answers." Palmer closed his eyes. He had woken up this morning thinking he would deliver medical supplies and move on to his next job. Instead, he was apparently a genetic key to ancient mysteries that could change the galaxy. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's find out what my ancestors left behind." News traveled fast in space. Within 24 hours, everyone seemed to know that a human cargo captain had been recognized as founder lineage. Palmer watched the station's news feeds from the secure room where they had moved him, and he didn't like what he saw. Some human groups were calling him a hero, proof that humanity was special. Other species were calling him a threat, demanding he be isolated or studied. Politicians were making speeches. Religious leaders were claiming divine significance. And somewhere out there, people were getting angry. "This is getting out of control," Palmer said to Xanthor, who had been assigned as his official liaison. The Valian's skin was a worried gray color. "Commander Zixnal is trying to keep things calm," Xanthor said, "but many ships have arrived at the station in the past day. Diplomats, military observers, scientists, everyone wants to see you." The door opened and a human man in expensive clothing entered, flanked by guards. He had perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Captain Palmer, I'm Counselor Marcus Flynn, human representative to the Galactic Assembly. I'm here to help you navigate this situation." "I don't need help," Palmer said. "I need people to leave me alone." Flynn's smile didn't waver. "Captain, whether you like it or not, you're now a figure of galactic importance. How you handle this will affect human standing in the Assembly. I can guide you through the political complexities. I'm not interested in politics." "Then you're a fool," Flynn said, dropping his friendly tone. "This discovery could advance human interests significantly, or it could be used against us. You need to work with me." "I need to deliver my cargo and get back to my life," Palmer said firmly. Before Flynn could respond, Dr. Cross entered with another woman, this one wearing a lab coat covered in technical symbols. "Captain Palmer, this is Dr. Lisa Hayes, a geneticist. She's completed a detailed analysis of your DNA." Dr. Hayes activated a holographic display. "Captain, the genetic markers are genuine. But here's what's interesting. They exist in trace amounts in approximately 0.03% of the human population. You're not unique. You're just one of potentially millions who carry these markers." "So why did the system recognize me?" Palmer asked. "Because you're the first one to trigger a scanner in a location with active architect protocols," Hayes explained. "If any of the others had come through this checkpoint, the same thing would have happened. You were simply in the right place at the right time." Palmer wasn't sure if that made him feel better or worse. "What about the pendant?" Cross asked. Hayes examined the crystal which Palmer had removed from his neck. "It's remarkable. The data storage is unlike anything we have, and it only responds to specific genetic signatures. Only someone with the architect markers can activate it." "What's stored in it?" Xanthor asked. "Coordinates, as we saw, but also something else. Warnings, instructions. The data is fragmentary, but it suggests the architects left multiple installations across the galaxy. Each one contains information or technology meant to help their descendants." Counselor Flynn leaned forward. "What kind of technology?" "We don't know yet," Hayes admitted. "But if the pendant is any indication, it's far beyond our current capabilities." "Then humanity should control it," Flynn said quickly. "Palmer has human DNA. Any architect legacy belongs to human authority." "The architects scattered across multiple species," Cross countered. This isn't just about humans. While they argued, Palmer noticed Xanthor looking uncomfortable. What is it? Palmer asked quietly. Ships, Xanthor said, checking his datapad. Several military vessels have taken positions around the station. Human alliance ships, Kryn warships. Everyone is watching. Palmer's stomach sank. This is about to get worse, isn't it? Much worse, Xanthor agreed. That night, Palmer made a decision. He couldn't stay on the station while politicians argued over him. He needed answers, and the only way to get them was to follow the coordinates his grandmother's pendant had shown. He found Jake in the crew quarters they had been assigned. We're leaving. Jake looked up from his datapad. Leaving? Greg, there are guards outside. Warships in orbit. We're not going anywhere. We're taking the Dawn Treader to those coordinates tonight. Are you crazy? They'll stop us. Not if we have help. Palmer pulled out his communication device and sent a message to Xanthor. 10 minutes later, the Valian appeared at their door, his skin shifting nervously through several colors. Captain Palmer, what you're asking is illegal. I could lose my position. I know, Palmer said. But you saw the maps. You heard what Dr. Cross said. If we stay here, politicians will control what happens next. If we go, we can find answers before this turns into a war. Xanthor was quiet for a long moment. The architects left those coordinates for their descendants to find, not for politicians to control. His skin settled into determined blue. I'll help you, but we'll need others. They recruited carefully. Dr. Cross agreed immediately, saying she had spent her career studying the architects and couldn't miss this opportunity. Professor Nina Ross, Cross's colleague, joined them. Lieutenant Kira Voss and another security officer, Pete Carter, volunteered to help, knowing they were risking their careers. Why are you doing this? Palmer asked Kira. She smiled. Because it's the right thing to do. And because I joined security to protect people, not to hold them prisoner for politicians. Getting to the ship was easier than Palmer expected. Xanthor knew the station's security systems intimately, and with his access codes they could move through restricted areas. Carter created a diversion at the main security hub, and the station itself seemed to help, with doors opening for Palmer and cameras mysteriously failing when they passed. They reached the Dawn Treader without being stopped. Palmer ran through pre-flight checks while the others secured themselves in the passenger area. Jake took his position as co-pilot, shaking his head in disbelief. I can't believe we're doing this, Jake muttered. Too late to back out now, Palmer said, firing up the engines. Commander Zixnall's voice came over the communication system. Dawn Treader, you are not cleared for departure. Stand down immediately. Palmer didn't respond. He guided the ship out of its berth and toward the station exit. Dawn Treader, this is your final warning. We will use defensive measures. Commander, Xanthor's voice came through on a secure channel. Don't stop them, please. This is bigger than station regulations. There was a long pause. Then Zixnall's voice came back, sounding tired. I'm going to regret this. Dawn Treader, you are cleared for departure, but know that I will be blamed for this. Thank you, Commander, Palmer said. The Dawn Treader slipped out of the station and accelerated into open space. Behind them, Palmer could see the warships beginning to move, but they were slow to react. By the time they organized pursuit, the Dawn Treader had engaged its jump drive and disappeared into faster-than-light travel. In the passenger area, Dr. Cross pulled up the star map from Palmer's pendant. The coordinates point to the Veil Nebula region. It's dense with gas clouds and stellar debris. Good place to hide something. How long until we arrive? Ross asked. 6 hours, Jake called back from the cockpit. Palmer stared at the stars streaking past the view screen. 6 hours until they reached whatever the architects had left behind. 6 hours until everything changed again. Behind them, on station Kepler 7, Commander Zixnall was explaining to a very angry council why he had let a founder candidate escape. Military forces were mobilizing to follow, and Counselor Flynn was making calls to very powerful people, demanding Palmer be found and brought back under human control. But the Dawn Treader was already far away, following coordinates 5,000 years old, heading toward answers that nobody in the current galaxy had ever imagined. Palmer touched the crystal pendant hanging around his neck again. His grandmother had given it to him with a simple instruction. Keep this safe. It's important. She had been right about that. He just wished she had mentioned it would turn his entire life upside down. 6 hours, he said quietly. Then we'll see what my ancestors wanted us to find. The Veil Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Gas clouds glowed in shades of purple and blue, lit by young stars scattered throughout the region. Stellar debris created a maze of rocks and ice, making navigation difficult even with modern sensors. "I'm reading something massive ahead," Jake said from the co-pilot seat. "It's inside that asteroid cluster at coordinates 779. Palmer guided the Dawn Treader carefully through the debris field. Rocks the size of buildings drifted past their hull. One collision could destroy them, but the ship's sensors and Palmer's steady hands kept them safe. "There," Dr. Cross said, pointing at the main view screen. An enormous asteroid floated ahead at least 20 miles across. But as they got closer, Palmer realized it wasn't natural. The surface was too smooth in places, too regular. And there was a massive opening on one side like a mouth waiting to swallow them. "That's artificial," Professor Ross said in awe. "The entire asteroid has been hollowed out and converted into a structure." Palmer's pendant began to glow warm against his chest. The opening ahead lit up with soft blue light and a beam extended from the installation to their ship. "We're being scanned," Jake said nervously. "No," Cross corrected, watching her instruments. "We're being welcomed. The installation recognizes Palmer's genetic signature. It's inviting us in." Palmer took a deep breath and piloted the ship into the opening. They passed through a shimmering barrier that made the ship's hull hum, then entered a vast internal space. The asteroid was indeed hollow, and inside was a facility that took Palmer's breath away. Towers of crystal and metal rose from the interior surface, connected by bridges of light. Ancient technology hummed with power, systems activating after thousands of years of dormancy. The entire facility glowed with soft illumination, responding to their presence. "Find a landing platform," Xanthor said, his skin bright with excited yellow. Palmer set the Dawn Treader down on a platform that extended automatically for them. As they powered down the ship, everyone sat in silence, staring at the alien architecture surrounding them. "The architects built this," Cross whispered. "We're standing in something 5,000 years old and it still works perfectly." They disembarked carefully, wearing environment suits until they could verify the atmosphere. Palmer's suit sensors showed breathable air, comfortable temperature, and Earth-normal gravity. "The facility is maintaining life support," Ross said, amazed. "After all this time, it's still functional." Palmer removed his helmet and breathed the ancient air. It tasted clean and fresh, as if the installation had been built yesterday. As he stepped forward, lights brightened throughout the facility. Doorways opened. Pathways illuminated, creating a clear route deeper into the structure. "It knows you're here," Kira said. "It's guiding you somewhere." They followed the lights through corridors of impossible beauty. The walls showed images that might have been memories or records, scenes of beings that looked almost human but not quite. The architects, Palmer realized. These were his ancestors. The path led to a central chamber dominated by a massive crystal sphere floating in the center. As Palmer approached, the sphere began to glow, and a holographic figure appeared before them. It was tall and slender, humanoid, but with features that were slightly different from any species Palmer knew. When it spoke, the words were in a language none of them recognized, but their translator devices caught up after a moment. "Welcome, descendant. You have found the memory keeper. I am a preserved consciousness left here to guide those who would follow." "What is this place?" Palmer asked. "A sanctuary, a warning, a gift." The holographic figure gestured and the chamber filled with images. "We were the architects. We built much of what your civilization uses today. We spread across thousands of worlds, advancing quickly, reaching toward the stars with joy. The images showed beautiful cities, fast ships, incredible technology. Then we detected something beyond our galaxy, an intelligence that consumed other civilizations. We called it the silence, for wherever it went, all voices stopped. All life ended. All light went dark. The images changed, showing something vast and terrible at the edge of the galaxy. Palmer couldn't look at it directly. His mind refused to comprehend what he was seeing. We realized we had grown too advanced, too quickly. Our energy signatures were like beacons, drawing the silence's attention. If we continued, we would bring destruction not just to ourselves, but to all life in this galaxy. "So you scattered," Cross said. "You reduced yourselves to primitive populations?" "Yes," the hologram confirmed. "We spread our people across dozens of worlds. We erased our memories, our technology. We became simple again. Farmers, hunters, builders of stone rather than stars. We hid our children among the quiet worlds, hoping they would grow slowly enough to avoid notice. But we didn't stay quiet, Palmer said. Civilization advanced again. Different species, different paths, but we rebuilt what you abandoned. We knew you would, the hologram said sadly. Life seeks complexity. Intelligence seeks knowledge. We could only delay, not prevent. That is why we left these installations. Warning systems. Tools for our descendants to use when the time came. What time? Jake asked. When the silence returns. The chamber fell silent. You mean it's coming here? Kira said, her voice shaking. It never stopped searching. It is patient beyond measure. It has been moving through the space between galaxies for millennia, drawn toward the signs of advanced civilization. Your current society has nearly reached the threshold that will draw its full attention. Professor Ross stepped forward. What can we do? How do we stop it? You cannot stop it, the hologram said. But you can hide from it. That is what we left behind. Technology to mask your civilization's energy signature, to make you appear smaller, quieter, less interesting than you are. But that would require enormous cooperation, Cross said. Multiple species working together. Sharing technology, trusting each other. Yes, the hologram agreed. The architects failed because we were alone. We had no one to share our burden with. But you have dozens of species, hundreds of worlds. If you work together, you can survive what destroyed us. Palmer looked at the hologram. Why me? Why leave this message for random descendants? Because bloodline carries memory in ways deeper than conscious thought. Because those who carry our genetic markers can access systems we built for exactly this purpose. You are not rulers. You are not chosen leaders. You are simply keys, able to open doors that must be opened. The hologram gestured again and the crystal sphere opened, revealing a small device inside. This is the mask generator. It contains the technology to hide your civilization's signature. But it only works if all major powers agree to use it. It requires cooperation, sacrifice, and trust, things we architects never achieved. Palmer reached out and took the device. It was surprisingly light, warm to the touch. There are others like you, the hologram continued. Other descendants carrying our markers. Other species with architect lineage. Find them, unite them. Present this choice to your leaders, hide and survive or shine brightly and face the silence. What if they choose wrong? Santhor asked. Then you will learn what we learned. That pride and division lead only to ending. The hologram began to fade. I am only a memory, preserved to deliver this message. Now it is yours to carry forward. Good fortune, descendants. May you succeed where we failed. The light disappeared, leaving them alone in the chamber with only the device Palmer held. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Jake broke the silence. So, that's terrifying. We need to get back to Station Kepler 7, Cross said.
The assembly needs to hear this. They won't believe us, Kira said.
Not without proof. We have proof, Palmer said, holding up the device. And we have 17 other installations to show them. The architects left this information across the galaxy. If we're smart, we'll use it. First, we have to get past the warships that are probably looking for us, Jake reminded them. Palmer smiled grimly. One problem at a time. Let's get home and save the galaxy from ancient cosmic horrors later. They returned to the Dawn Treader, carrying with them knowledge that would change everything. Behind them, the architect facility dimmed its lights, settling back into patient waiting. The Dawn Treader emerged from the Veil Nebula to find 3 warships waiting. One carried human fleet markings. Another showed Kryn military colors. The third belonged to a Valian diplomatic escort. Well, this is going to be interesting, Jake said, eyeing the tactical display. Palmer opened communication channels to all 3 ships. This is Captain Greg Palmer of the Dawn Treader. Before anyone does something aggressive, I have information that affects all of us. Information about the architects and why they left. There was a pause. Then a voice came through, authoritative and calm. Captain Palmer, this is Admiral Christina Blake of the Human Alliance Navy. You are ordered to surrender yourself and your vessel immediately. Admiral, with respect, you need to hear what we found. You fled lawful custody and entered restricted space, Blake responded. You will comply with orders or face consequences. A second voice interrupted, harsh and commanding. This is Warlord Thexron of the Kryn battle fleet. The human cargo pilot possesses architect technology. That technology is too dangerous to remain in civilian hands. Surrender it to us. Nobody is surrendering anything until we talk, Palmer said firmly. Before more threats could be exchanged, Xanthor stepped forward. This is Security Officer Xanthor of Station Kepler 7. I have evidence that what Captain Palmer found concerns all species. I recommend all parties meet at the station to review this evidence under neutral conditions. Who authorized you to speak, Security Officer? Thexron demanded. The same protocols that authorized Palmer as a founder, Xanthor replied calmly. I followed those protocols to help him reach the Architect installation. What we discovered affects galactic survival. Admiral Blake was quiet for a moment. Survival? That's a strong word. It's the right word, Dr. Cross said, joining the conversation. Admiral, I'm Dr. Helen Cross, xenoarchaeologist. The architects left a message for their descendants. A warning. If we don't work together, we face extinction. Bold claims, Thexron said skeptically. Then meet us at Station Kepler 7 and judge for yourself, Palmer said. I'll present everything we found. All factions present, all data shared. No secrets, no political games. Just the truth about what's coming. Another voice joined the conversation, this one cultured and diplomatic. This is Ambassador Quintel aboard the Valian vessel Harmony. I support this proposal. Let us gather in neutral space and hear what has been discovered. If it truly concerns galactic survival, we cannot afford to fight among ourselves. Admiral Blake sighed audibly. Very well. Dawn Treader, you are cleared to proceed to Station Kepler 7 under escort. All vessels will stand down from combat readiness. But Captain Palmer, if this is a trick, you will face serious consequences. No tricks, Palmer promised. Just the truth. The small fleet made its way to Station Kepler 7. By the time they arrived, word had spread further. More ships had gathered, representing dozens of species. The station's largest conference chamber had been prepared for what was being called the most important assembly in 1,000 years. Commander Zixnall met them at the docking bay, his expression unreadable. Captain Palmer, you have caused me enormous difficulties. I'm sorry, Palmer said sincerely. But it was necessary, perhaps. We shall see. Zixnall gestured toward the corridor. The assembly is waiting. Everyone wants to hear what you found. The conference chamber was packed. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tiered seating, all eyes on Palmer as he entered. Admiral Blake was there, wearing full-dress uniform. Warlord Thexron loomed in the back, his Kryn warriors surrounding him. Counselor Flynn sat in the human delegation, looking angry that Palmer had escaped his control. Dozens of others filled the remaining spaces. Palmer stood at the central podium with Dr. Cross beside him. He placed the device from the Architect installation on the display platform, where holographic projectors could show everyone what it contained. My name is Greg Palmer, he began. I'm a cargo pilot. A few days ago, I thought my biggest problem was making delivery schedules. Then Station Kepler 7's security system recognized genetic markers in my DNA, markers from a civilization called the Architects. He activated the device, and the chamber filled with holographic images. The Architects' message played for everyone, showing their history, their fear of the silence, and their desperate choice to scatter and hide. The chamber was silent as the hologram explained how the Architects had reduced themselves to primitive populations to avoid extinction, how they had spread across multiple worlds, including Earth, hoping their descendants would grow slowly enough to stay beneath notice. When the message reached the part about the silence, many representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The images of the vast intelligence beyond the galaxy made several species gasp or recoil. The Architects left technology to help us, Palmer continued when the message ended. This device can mask our civilization's energy signature. It can make us appear smaller and quieter than we are, buying us time to grow stronger without drawing attention. But using it requires cooperation, Dr. Cross added. It only works if all major civilizations agree to implement it. If even one faction refuses, the mask fails and we remain visible to the silence. Warlord Thexron stood. This could be a trick. A way to weaken our military capabilities while humans gain advantage. Why would I fake this? Palmer asked, gesturing to the holographic images still floating above them. The technology in that installation is thousands of years beyond anything we have. If I wanted to gain advantage, I could have kept it secret and sold it. Instead, I'm here sharing it with everyone. Admiral Blake stood next. Captain Palmer raises a valid point. If the Architect technology is real, and I believe it is based on my ship's scans of the installation, then this threat is real as well. We cannot afford to ignore it. What if we simply destroy the silence? Another representative asked. With what? Cross responded. We barely understand what it is. The architects were far more advanced than we are, and they chose to hide rather than fight. That should tell us something about the scale of the threat. Counselor Flynn stood, his face red with anger. Captain Palmer, you had no authority to make contact with architect technology. You should have waited for proper human authority to handle this. There wasn't time for proper authority, Palmer shot back. While politicians argued over who owned me, the truth needed to be found. So I went and found it. Ambassador Quintel rose gracefully. Perhaps we should focus less on blame and more on solutions. Captain Palmer, you said there are other installations, other descendants with architect markers. Yes, Palmer confirmed. 17 installations across the galaxy, and according to the architect's message, their genetic markers exist in multiple species. Humans aren't the only descendants. We're just one branch of a larger family. This caused murmurs throughout the chamber. Species that had considered themselves entirely separate now faced the possibility of shared ancient ancestry. A Valian counselor spoke up. If we implement this masking technology, what must we sacrifice? Some military capability, Cross admitted. Some industrial output. The mask works by reducing our energy signature, which means operating at lower power levels in certain areas. It would require international cooperation and some technological limitations. But we would survive, Palmer added, and we would have time to research, to grow stronger, to find better solutions. The architects failed because they were alone and divided. We have the chance to succeed because we're many and can choose to work together. The debate lasted for hours. Species argued, negotiated, threatened, and compromised. Admiral Blake and Warlord Thexron nearly came to blows twice, but Ambassador Quintel and others worked to keep discussions civil. Finally, as the station's artificial day turned to artificial night, a consensus emerged. The major civilizations would agree to implement the masking technology in phases, with independent observers monitoring compliance. A council of scientists from multiple species would study the other architect installations and develop better long-term solutions. Palmer stood before the assembly one final time. I want to make something clear. I'm not a leader. I'm not special. I'm just someone who happened to have the right genetic markers to access an old message. But that message is now everyone's responsibility. The architects gave us their warning and their tools. What we do with them is up to all of us together. Counselor Flynn approached as the assembly dispersed. You embarrassed me, Palmer. You embarrassed humanity. No, Palmer said quietly. I helped save it. There's a difference. Flynn stalked away, but others approached with gratitude. Admiral Blake shook his hand. You did well, Captain. Not many civilians could handle this kind of pressure. I just wanted to deliver my cargo, Palmer said with a tired smile. I believe your medical supplies were delivered 3 days ago, Blake said. Though you missed your schedule somewhat. Xanthor approached, his skin a proud blue. Captain Palmer, the council has requested that I serve on the new Architect Technology Committee. They want someone who understands security protocols and can work with multiple species. That's perfect for you, Palmer said, genuinely pleased. You'll do great. What will you do? Xanthor asked. Palmer looked at Jake, who had been waiting patiently through all the